What we're going to talk about in this video is a mode that you probably don't use, but you probably should use, at least in certain situations. Most of the time, you're going to be using this mode right here, and that is our selection mode. So as the name denotes, all you have to do is click on any one of these, and you can select the footage. If you have an option up in the settings where it says selection follows playhead, this playhead here will go to whatever clip that you have selected. But the other thing that we can do in this mode is if we hover over the footage near where there's an edit point, so right in between two clips, we can wait until the symbol changes, and then we can drag to make it smaller, or if there's enough footage, we can drag it in the other direction just to make it a little bit longer. The other thing that we can do is in this mode, if we hover in between the two clips on that edit point, we can drag left and right, and you'll see how much of the footage is left to work with, which you can see by that white outline on the bottom half of those clips. Now, if we go into trim mode, which is right next to selection mode, now if we hover over one of the clips, we have what's called a slip. So essentially, we're just moving this clip in its position. So the length of the timeline isn't getting any larger. All we're essentially doing is changing the start point and end point, which you can see at the top of your screen here. So those bottom two clips, the one on the left is the clip before, the last frame of the clip before, and the one on the right on the bottom is the first frame of the clip following that. The one on top is the clip that we have selected, and the top left is the first frame of the clip that we have selected, and the top right is the last frame of the clip we have selected. So as you can see, if we move it along, we can determine where we want this to either come in, whichever is more important to us, or where it ends. The other option we have in this mode is if we were to bring it down to the bottom of the clip, it changes the symbol, and this is called our slide. And essentially, it's the opposite of what we just saw. So the length of the clip also doesn't change, but the start and end point remain the same. So if I left click and drag this around, again, you'll see that white outline to see how far we can move it left and right. And now the first and last frame of the clip we have selected isn't changing up top, but now we're changing where it comes in on the left-hand side on the bottom, which is our previous clip, and what would be the first frame of the clip following. Now, the easiest way that I found to remember the slip and slide is with the slide, as if you were at a slide at a playground, you move from one location to the other. So that's essentially what you're doing with the clip. You're moving it from one location to another. And with the slip, if you slip and fall, you're generally in the same location. So you can sort of think of it in those terms to remember what slip and slide does within the program. So now that I've shown you the difference between those two modes, let's go ahead and look at this third mode, which is actually not its own mode. It can be combined with either of those. I personally think it makes a lot more sense using it in the trim mode. I'm going to click on that icon right there. And what it did is move to the nearest edit point, so that point right in between the two clips. And as I'm sure you've noticed, it changed to a yellow color as opposed to that red color. Now this is called the dynamic trimming mode. And the other name that you could use for this is the JKL mode. You may be familiar with this, but quickly, if you're not, if you select JK and L on your keyboard, J plays it in reverse, K stops, and then L plays it forward. So what you're essentially doing in this mode is editing on the fly. And I'll show you what I mean. So right now we have the playhead parked in between those two clips. Let me go ahead and hit the J key on my keyboard, and let's see what happens. And I will hit the K key right after that. This way we can actually stop what's happening. So what we've done there is perform that slide edit, while we're watching through the footage. As I'm sure you could hear, it also plays the audio. There's actually two modes in this particular mode. If I hit the S key, if you look at the icon for the dynamic trimming, it changes to a different mode. Now, if I head up to that icon and right click, you can see we have the slip and the slide. So right now I have it on slip. So what's going to happen, again, this clip is going to move, but it's not going to change its location within the time frame, and also not going to change the timeline length. So let's hit J and then K right after to stop it, and you can see what happens. Now this doesn't only happen when you have a clip selected. You can also choose an edit point. Let's go ahead and select this edit point right in between these two clips here. And now we can move that around. Again, I'll use the JK and L keys to play forward, backward, and stop. We can actually come in here and box select a few edit points too, such as these two right here. What it will do is choose one of those edit points. You can only view one of the edit points at a time. So let me go ahead and hit J here. And the reason it's showing us that bottom clip here is because it's on that edit point. If we did want to move this over to this one, and we haven't changed anything else, now we can monitor where the top clip comes in. So I'll go ahead and hit J again. Now that may or may not be something that you want to do because you can only see that one clip at one time. We also can select different edit points and they can move in different directions. You don't necessarily have to choose right in the middle as we did here. As you just saw, you can box select two clips just like that, but you can also manually do this depending on where the clips are located in your timeline. If I hover right next to where the edit point is, the symbol changes. We can click right there and you'll have that green line, and that's on the right side of the edit, so it's not selecting this clip on the left hand side. If I wanted to choose maybe the left hand side of this one also, I can hold down Control on my Windows keyboard, wait for that symbol to change, and then click the left side of this clip. Or we could do something like this where I'm selecting this side also. I'll slide this over a little bit just so you can see what's happening. As I mentioned, it may not work for all situations, especially because you can only monitor one particular part of the footage. But if you wanted to play through the footage to get it to an exact point and stop it by pressing a key on your keyboard, you can do it this way. Now there is an advantage to not using dynamic trim mode in this particular situation. If I uncheck this and we try to move this around, we'll get the 4-up screen. Just to be clear, at the top, we're seeing the beginning and ending frame of the clip that I'm moving around right now. Because we selected the edit point of the clip with the man at his laptop, that part of our 4-up is moving. This way we can see the first frame of that particular clip. And then on the bottom left, we didn't have that clip selected, so we're just looking at a static frame there of the last frame of that particular clip. The final thing I wanted to mention about this mode is that it functions in the same way as the playing of the clip as it does with the edit of the clip. So what I'm saying is if you hit J, K, and L, and I'm in the selection mode, let me uncheck dynamic trimming, L will play forward, K will stop, J will play back. If you double tap it, it will play either quickly forward or quickly backward depending on which letter you choose. So let me go ahead and double tap L. And that still applies to our dynamic trimming. I know you may have had the thought that while you play through your footage, you may not land on the frame that you want, but there's also a way that you can rectify that. So let's pretend that I'm playing through my footage and I stop it, but it's not the exact frame that I wanted to stop on. So I'm going to press L to play through my footage, and then K to stop. Now, even if I didn't get the exact frame, but I have it near where I wanted it to stop, what you can do is hold down the letter K and you can go frame by frame selecting which one you want by choosing either of the letters with the K pressed down. So right now I'll press down K, keep it held down, and if I press on L, I'm moving it one frame at a time. And the same thing for the other direction. If I hold down K, move it the other direction, it's one frame at a time. So I know that it may be moving quickly when it's playing through, and you may not get the exact edit point, but then at that point, you can go ahead and just hold down K and then dial it in. I mentioned this earlier, you can use this in selection mode. The problem is it's somewhat destructive. If I change this to slide and hit J and then L, you can see what it's done to our clip before. Whereas in trim mode, it doesn't cut off part of the clip, it does in selection mode. So there's very rare cases, in my opinion, that you would use dynamic trimming in this particular situation. But using the JKL edits in trim mode is definitely beneficial. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. All the clips and audio in this video were from Artgrid and Artlist. If you want 2 free months on top of a yearly subscription, go ahead and use my link in the description below. Follow me over on Twitter, link in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video.